something we talk about quite a bit. So.
No one cares about the Supreme Court.
Everybody, listen, that's all you care about. It's all we all care about. Right?
I vote exclusively based on the Supreme Court.
As well you should. That in and of itself would justify voting for Democrats.
All right.
All right.
You guys are live and hot.
Cool. So we have a returning guest who I just now met. Could you introduce yourself again?
Yeah, I'm Stephen Bonnell. Dustin.
that guy, yeah.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, we borrowed his stream.
I'm William Walter. I am the executive director of our Wisconsin Revolution. For those of you familiar with Bernie Sanders, we are the state offshoot of his organization, but we are independent. We have our own board, we have our own members, our own funding, because Wisconsin issues are very unique. And we can approach things from a different perspective, let's say, than if we were following what National is doing. Not that they're not doing great work, but it allows us the flexibility to do things as we see fit. And I'm also running for the 24th Assembly District. So that is the House of Representatives, but at the state level here in Wisconsin.
So obviously we hear a lot about Wisconsin, certainly at the national level, it's like national implications, which I'm sure you have a lot of like emotional investment in as well. I mean,
every 4 years, the eyes, ears, and attention of the nation comes down on Wisconsin. We love it. It's exhausting, but we love it.
So I guess before we get into like national politics, especially since you're running for like local stuff, and you may have like covered this with Stephen and Hutch yesterday, but now that you're in the presence of a much cooler person than certainly Hutch, probably Stephen too.
Those were not my words, Stephen.
I'm taking those words, and I'm sure he'll stand by it. If you could talk about that, because like state, and I've heard Stephen say this before, certainly the more local you are, you could easily make the argument that that's really what people should be concerned with. Not that the national level doesn't matter, but certainly your more local level politics. But it also doesn't get the attention, right?
Oh, yeah.
So why is it important for people to turn out for like local elections and, for people to, bluntly speaking, care about the office for which you're running?
Well, there are so many generic phrases and sayings that you see tossed around in electoral politics, like all politics is local. These sayings and phrases exist for a reason, because the tangible impact on your day-to-day life that your local elected official can have is so much greater than at the national level. When we win in November and send Kamala Harris to the White House, I can't text Kamala or email Kamala and ask her, hey, question about, this. What are you going to be doing in this regard? Like, you can't do that. You can't do that with your sitting senator. You can't do that with your congressional rep. Maybe some people can if they're big donors, but us regular Wisconsinites don't have the ability to do that. But who you can connect with is your assembly district rep, your state senator. Those individuals are a lot more responsive to emails, to social media, to all those kind of things, because they have many less constituents than at the national level. So when we're going door to door, you touched on it. It's not sexy. Politics is not sexy, and it doesn't get the coverage.
Excuse me, have you seen your shoes? I think it can be sexy. Okay, listen, don't knock it out.
I love these shoes, and we'll get
Justin
to that.
Timberlake of politicians, because those shoes are bringing sexy back.
These races don't get the coverage and the attention of the national races. They don't have the television commercials. They don't have the social media ads. They don't have the book groups, church groups talking about them as much, because they're not seeing them on the news. They're not seeing their coverage. Instead, what we try to do is offer a third space, if you will, which doesn't really exist in the modern world. Stephen and I discussed this a little bit yesterday with Hutch. In the past, you had the local bar, you had your gym, you had your church, you had malls for young people, places where you could congregate outside of home and work to serve as your social, exposure, to meet other people, to spend time with like-minded people. It doesn't really exist in the modern world. You can't really go to the park and play basketball. You can, there are still examples, but it's not the same as it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. So a lot of people have retreated to the internet. A lot of people have retreated to television, to their own homes, and the only way to have access to the outside world then is through media. Media, of course, is in the business of making money themselves. So those who have the resources to put towards media, usually the bigger, larger campaigns, you're going to see a lot more coverage of them. What we're doing instead is building this third space through other means, whether that's my local grassroots group. I got to give a shout out to them, because this was the shirt I was wearing canvassing earlier today. Grassroots Menominee Falls. I co-lead a group called Grassroots Germantown. That is primarily my district. We're sister organizations, but we work hand in hand because we're outside of the party structure. So we don't have to play by their rules. We can do things our own way. We like to hold picnic in the park type events where we'll go get a boatload of food from the local sandwich shop and just invite everybody in the area. Come chill at the park. Come talk to other people who see the world like you do. Realize you're not alone. In some of these communities, we discussed it yesterday, the famous WOW counties. As WOW goes, Wisconsin goes, I believe was the quote.
A few times.
It got tossed around here or there. The WOW counties are three of the whitest, most conservative counties in the country, and usually Wisconsin comes down to turnout between Dane and Milwaukee versus the WOW counties. So a lot of people in these WOW counties feel like they might be the only Democrat or the only progressive that they know. They're afraid to put out signs because of that. They don't want their neighbors to judge them or look down on them or anything. And we want to provide this place where they can reaffirm, oh, wait, my ideas aren't radical. They're not extreme. I'm not alone. There are others like me. You break down that veil, all of a sudden one person puts up a sign up, the person across the street's comfortable enough to put up a sign, boom, 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 boom. You build this infrastructure at the ground level. You win these races locally with authentic candidates who do speak on behalf of their constituents rather than their big donors, which is a lot easier to do at the local level because there's a lot less resources going into these races. And you can start to really see this effect snowball. You can start to see people getting more engaged, more involved in a way that is really refreshing for me as a young candidate, because Bernie in 2016 was my awakening in electoral politics. But I was a child when Obama ran in 2008, so I wasn't really paying attention. You see the South Park episodes and you're like, oh yeah, funny, but you don't recognize the importance of that moment. So to see the kind of energy and the inspiration that a lot of young people are presenting, and that's something that I actually wanted to give big credit to Stephen and Hutch for yesterday. I was so impressed by what I saw when I came to speak at the Progressive Victory event yesterday. I think I was brought in to inspire the volunteers, but really the volunteers inspired me. I had no idea what I was walking into. I've spoken at a lot of events over the years, and sometimes turnout is great, sometimes not so much, but Kyla told me that you had north of 300 people, and I'll round it down to 300. So that's teams of 150. Let's say you're going out 20 to 25 doors an hour for a 4-hour session. You could be hitting 15,000 doors. That's ungodly. That's incredibly, incredibly impressive. I was so impressed by everything that you guys did that I came back to your nightcap last night because I wanted to walk around and talk to some of the volunteers, introduce myself, hear from them, see from them. You know what I saw? I saw something that I'm imagining the clip of Hillary Clinton where she walks into the regular person's kitchen and she's like dumbfounded, like, oh, how can you live like this? There are a lot of elites, including in the Democratic Party, who would have walked into an event like that and had a similar reaction. Oh, look at all these young people playing video games and card games and board games together. What the heck? No. You created a sense of camaraderie. You created a sense of belonging. That's what everybody on earth is looking for. We are tribal by nature, whether that's your sports teams, we were talking sports affiliation earlier, whether that's your political party, whether that's the social media influencer you follow. We see this tribal nature through all of human efforts, and I think we can be using that too. Progressives can be using that too to help build a coalition of voters, of young voters that are going to tangibly change the future. I was just so impressed by that. I had to come back last night to give a shout out to you guys because that was really tremendous work. To see people put their money where their mouth is, get out on the streets. Canvassing is still the gold standard of voter turnout.
Yeah, he won't brag about himself, but the rest of us will make him uncomfortable and brag about him. So that's one of the things about Stephen that really sets him apart is the fact that his community, DGG, is so invested in political outcomes. It would be easy for him to just sit back and talk about politics and not get involved, which is how most political commentators, unfortunately, choose to leverage their influence. Not to say that what they do doesn't matter and it's not important, but he actually mobilizes the community to do it. So it's good that you recognize that and appreciate that and see, as a politician, how that can shape the outcome of particular races. You're running for the state legislature, and so I'm just trying to remember all my Wisconsin factoids. Is it unicameral or bicameral? Like, do you have two chambers or just one?
We have two chambers, Senate, upper chamber. The assembly districts are the lower chamber. It's very easy to remember. We have 99 assembly districts, 33 Senate districts, each Senate district made up of exactly 3 assembly districts.
Wait,
So
how many states have unicamerals?
There are a few.
I thought Nebraska was the only one.
Oh, maybe.
Don't take that from
Listen,
us.
wait a minute.
Hey, I'm just saying.
I know
don't take that
Wisconsin,
from us.
Here
Don't
we
take
go.
that from us.
Everything about
Okay?
Nebraska.
Just don't take that from us. We don't have much. All right?
Listen,
We have a unicameral. Fuck you.
Listen.
Okay.
Okay.
Anyway.
I think that's fake news. I think that Nebraska is not the only one. As a matter of fact, there were probably other states.
It's alternative facts,
and-
brother, not fake news.
Alternative facts,
Yes.
to quote I was almost going to say the great Kellyanne Conway, and then I would have thrown up. But they are, obviously you have Governor Evers,
Yep.
Democrat. Are both chambers under Republican control?
Yes, the Senate is supermajority, 22. The Assembly is 64, 2 votes shy of a supermajority. That is problematic. For example, I got to give a shout out to Assembly Rep. Ryan Clancy, who is a socialist. We have a socialist caucus here in Wisconsin. For those unfamiliar, Wisconsin has a very rich history. The Milwaukee Sewer Socialists, going back decades, Milwaukee had 3 socialist mayors. Our state motto was literally forward. You know, we were the birthplace of the Republican Party back when it was the party of Lincoln, the progressive party, if you will.
Oh, so you're responsible for it.
Ripon is responsible for it. That's where Kamala and Liz were the other day. But you know, we have this rich history. Ryan went down to volunteer.
Yeah.
He's with I believe he's with the Red Cross. Don't quote me on that, but he went down to
Quote
support
and clip it. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
to support victims of the hurricane, and he had to keep that a secret because we have had issues in the past, even with COVID as well, where if a couple of Democratic votes are gone, the Republicans can swoop in and do whatever they want, and the governor's veto will no longer matter. So it's very problematic. But with the new maps, we're hoping to defeat that.
Well, let's talk about that too, because and I'm curious, and it may have no tangible effect. I doubt it, but it could potentially have no tangible impact. But the last time that I was here in Wisconsin, we were canvassing DGG and Progressive Victory to get Justice Protasiewicz elected, and she did win her race.
By
and
11 points.
By
Absolute
11 points.
landslide in Wisconsin.
100%. She was up against a former Supreme Court appointee who was a election denier, Trump ally. Yeah, she blew him out of the water. How has that impacted? I mean, certainly we've seen the impact or the implications on a national level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having a sane Wisconsin Supreme Court. What has the effects of that been at the state level for you guys? And how could I guess having a Democratic governor and having a liberal majority on the court and potentially flipping or at least shrinking the Republican control of your state legislature, what are the ways that could have an impact on your constituents?
Well, we like to think that we could be Michigan or Minnesota. You get a 1 or 2 vote majority, all of a sudden you start doing good things to help people out once you show them what government can do for them when it's working on their behalf rather than working on behalf of the billionaires and 100 millionaires and large dollar donors. You could monopolize
Like
the entire
Eric Hovde?
generation of voters.
Like Eric Hovde?
Like Orange County, California's finest.
Yeah.
Eric Hovde. You know, I think it's kind of funny because this is now the second or third time that Republicans have done this in the last 3 or 4 years. It's almost like they recognize Donald Trump is completely emptying the war chest, so they have to dig out the little black book and be like, all right, which megalomaniac rich freak hasn't run in a while? Let's dig them out of our out of the phone bank and McCall again and see if they're willing to self-fund another race. You know, Tim Michaels famously lives in Connecticut, but you know the family business is here, so they swoop in. They think they can buy their way into office, and Wisconsinites have thoroughly rejected that now. It will be twice when Tammy Baldwin wins in November.
You're pretty bullish on Senator Baldwin's chances then?
So I don't want to get ahead of ourselves because at the end of the day, elections are won by the work. And if I sit here and say, look, we're going to win, and people don't volunteer because of it, that could change very quickly.
Sure.
We need to make sure we're out there putting in the work. If you ask me off camera so that I'm not held to it in the future, I will give you a bold, you might find it bold, but a prediction that I am very confident in regarding a couple of the races around the state, and I think we'll end up seeing numbers very close to that. But I don't have the guts of either of you two, so I'm not going to say it.
Well, she's certainly done great work for the state. She's done great work for the United States on behalf of Wisconsin. There's no doubt.
She's got the farmer union's endorsement. First Democrat in 20-something years to do so.
That's incredible. It's incredible. She's definitely when it comes to women's rights and reproductive health, she's like leading the charge on it. It would be great if we continue a Democratic presidency and also keep the Senate and take back the House, and be able to see more of those initiatives from Senator Baldwin make it through and be signed into law.
Yeah.
So anyway, you were saying though, like that this could have a serious impact, like if you were to win your election, if you were to shrink that, Republican majority, that it would have a tangible impact for your constituents.
Yeah. Oh, and so my race, some of these districts, particularly my district, are still heavily conservative.
Right.
At the same time, democracy is a participation sport.
Yeah.
It's a noun by definition. It should be a verb because it requires all of us to do our job if we want to see it thrive, not only survive. And I firmly believe then that you have to have options. You have to have people on the ballot. You need to make these career politicians that have won cycle after cycle after cycle get out and campaign, because a lot of them are insulated from that. That's my job. That's my role, building the infrastructure so that another young candidate in 2, 4, 6 years that comes through might have a little easier say. We might have chipped away enough that they can make a difference. But I just want to give the community something that they can feel confident in seeing, so that they know, again, we're not alone. That's what this all comes back to, is at the end of the day, it might feel like it when you see how many Trump signs are down your street, but then all of a sudden, one Kamala Harris sign pops up, another one, another one, another one, another one. It's like, oh, wait a minute. We are doing something here. We are making a difference. We are changing our community. Complaining is not going to do it, right? Getting inspired, getting involved, getting engaged at the local level will do it. And that's our big ask for people, particularly young people. And I think that's why I was so inspired by the work that I saw this weekend, because there was awful lot of young people out there, and they were doing the actual work. They weren't just posting online about it. I love my community and my constituents. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but there are a lot of people who feel, blasting to their followers is enough. Like, oh, I talk about it online all the time, how energized and excited I am for November because of how much it matters. And I'm like, that's great. But at the end of the day, how much of a difference is that really making? Come knock doors with me, right? I don't want your money. I don't need your money. We have everything we need for this campaign, but what we don't have is the manpower yet, the people power that's going to really drive this movement forward. So introduce me to your neighbors, introduce me to your friends, your family. Let's go out and talk to everybody, every single door in this community, and let's see what we can accomplish.
Have you seen meaningful strides in that regard, like the increase in participation in door knocking?
We have 4 X-Star volunteers this year alone.
That's awesome.
I don't know if that's just because of how important this singular moment is, or if it's because of my message, which again, if we overperform, then I'm able to go back and say, look, you don't have to build your campaign entirely around fundraising. So many of these people, and I say this at the doors all the time, they might ask why they don't recognize my name. Well, because I haven't been sending you a bunch of bullshit mailers that we both know are going right from your mailbox into the garbage can. I'm not calling or texting you 10,000 times because I don't believe in that.
Right.
It's tough because you don't get your name out there. But at the end of the day, then I am betting on the community rallying around this message and helping me organically spread my campaign by, being out in the community and talking to the people that they interact with on a daily basis in a way that you just can't do from being a face on a piece of literature or, a name on a television ad or whatever.
Yeah, fair enough. I know you said you had a good story about the shoes. Before we go to that real quick, 2 questions. You know how much longer we have?
Theoretically 5 minutes,
Okay.
but we can just kind of go until he's sitting in here.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions? I'm sorry, I was hogging all his time.
No, I already spoke to him yesterday when I was here doing the work. You
Yeah.
stayed at home.
Well, listen,
Tweeting out
I'm
your
glad that you
thoughts,
got the. I'm glad that you
blasting
got
it out on the internet.
I'm glad that you got the rough draft questions from Steven over there, and you got the better questions from me. So I do want to tee up. You said that when you came in, and I noticed the shoes.
Yep.
You were talking about door knocking. You talked about the shirt. So you said you had a funny story.
Well, what else do you see about the getup? If you were to look at this right now, what
the
is
belt, the red shirt.
You see red, you see white, you see
Patriotism. I understood why when you walked in. I wanted to stand up, salute,
Bingo.
recite the Pledge of Allegiance. Gotcha.
I was walking at a parade this week. Well, not this week. Earlier this month. I had a line of people stand up and salute. No, not literally, but
That would've been awesome.
I did have. There are so many people who. Usually I don't go this obvious, but I wanted to make the point because I think it's funny. I could have worn one of those Hawaiian shirts that are clearly decked out American flag with the big screaming eagle over the front. Like, yeah, that's the more.
Or you could just go get an eagle. That'd be like full.
Or I could just rock the eagle on my arm or something.
Yeah.
But these kind of like I hate to say subconscious manipulation because that's such an evil way to say it. It sounds Machiavellian, but we've kind of like granted patriotism to Republicans. They have control of the flag. They see themselves as the true Americans, and the irony of that, of course, is they're the ones who tried to overturn the most fundamental of American freedoms
and
the right to vote
celebrate
and democracy.
and celebrate a disastrous recent Supreme Court ruling, basically conferring sweeping immunity to presidents, getting us one step closer to a monarchy.
This
They
country
love it.
built on the idea of each individual's vote is just as valuable as the other. We don't have kings. Nobody is above the
Yeah.
law. and they are, like you said, celebrating attempts to kind of revert back to that. So
Yeah.
I think Democrats need to do a better job of reclaiming patriotism. We are the party that believes in healthcare. We are the party that believes in a habitable climate. We are the party that believes in women's reproductive freedom. We are the party that believes in public education for public dollars towards public education, so everyone has access to information and can, I hate to say, pull themselves up by the bootstraps, but have the ability to do so. We believe that this country should be a meritocracy. The Republicans don't. And
Yeah.
if we can take that back, I have so many people comment on these shoes when I'm at the doors. Oh yeah, that's a nice patriotic young man. Look at those shoes. Like, you wouldn't believe how such a little gesture, or like we were talking earlier, when you show up at the door with something they recognize. One of the first things I tell canvassers when you come to a new community is, pick up a shirt from the local high school. We're in West Dallas, Wisconsin right now. West Dallas volleyball, West Dallas football, something like that. Everybody is tribal by nature. Everybody wants to feel like they belong. So you present yourself as a member of the community, often because you are, but even if you're not, you're a young person that cares about these issues. You're showing that I am one of you, I am like you, I want to speak to you because we probably have similar goals and perspectives. So I love rocking these because the parade story was half true, I guess. I had a gentleman in his mid-50s who had been drinking heavily all day, and he's sitting with all of his young kids, and he walks up to me in the middle of the street, walks into the road, and daps me up. He's like, "Brother, I love those shoes." I was like, "Thanks, man. I appreciate that." He's like, "Are those the Converse high tops?" I was like, those are the Converse high tops. And he's like, "Where'd you get them?" I'm like, "Converse.com, bro." And he's like, "You got my vote." Dude didn't ask me what party I'm with, what I believe in. Like, he just liked that I treated him like a human being and was real with him and was clearly just like a regular dude running for office. I'm not wearing a suit and tie walking around through 80-degree weather. Like, I'm just like, nah, dude, I want to represent my community. This community has given a lot to me. I got a great education here. I still live here. All my friends grew up here. I'm hoping to return the favor because politics, in theory, it should be a calling. It shouldn't be a career. As an example, my opponent was elected back in 2008. I was in 8th grade. I was at the local middle school at the time. I was a literal child. But they get into office. They have access to your home through advertising, whether it's television, social media, mailers, all that kind of stuff. They don't have to worry about going door to door and talking to you because they really just don't care.
Well, you did say something. I guess I'll close on this. You touched on this idea of patriotism. I'll be honest with you, it worked well enough. I didn't notice that you were doing like a red, white, and blue thing until you drew attention to it. But we've seen from Vice President Harris that her campaign has been at the national level deliberately trying to reclaim notions of patriotism. Mm-hmm. And again, I'll glaze Stephen here because he's been talking about this for years, that's something that Democrats should do. Here's my question. Based on my understanding of you, you're definitely very progressive. Others who are more on the liberal side tend to be friendlier to notions of patriotism. There's this perception that to be a progressive is to be so critical of America as to not be a patriot. Mm-hmm. Do you think that these ideas exist in mutual hostility, to be a progressive means you have to be opposed to patriotism, or you think that progressivism is actually true patriotism? I'm curious how you reconcile this.
I would argue progressivism is true patriotism because we are the ones who want what's best for all Americans. We are the ones who are trying to fight for affordable, accessible healthcare, childcare, all of the issues that regular working class Americans are dealing with every single day. At the end of the day, progressives, I think, at least my criticism is primarily for the power structure that be, the wealthy that continue hoarding more and more and more assets while the rest of us continue to fall further and further behind. And there's often the misconception when you're saying, tax the rich, that Dale, who makes $35, $40K a year, thinks you're referring to his Uncle Bob, who's a self-made man making $150,000, $160,000 a year. Like, no, Dale, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Jim, the guy who owns the local, corporate conglomerate or whatever that's got a net worth north of $2.5 billion. Those are the individuals that really control the vast majority of American society. You go to Open Secrets and you look at how much money is just pouring into these races, cycle after cycle after cycle. It's ungodly. I mean, billions, tens of billions of dollars will be spent in this election cycle this year. What we could do with that kind of money? And I think most Americans agree with that. I talk to a lot of conservatives, as you can imagine. And when we have these type of conversations, much like the conversation we had yesterday around a national not-for-profit health insurance program, it's about how you message it properly. because a lot of us at the end of the day do want the same things. It's just some have been so heavily propagandized that they're just seeing, it's the fear mongering, it's the divisive, bombastic rhetoric being thrown at them day in and day out, that they just kind of get scared of their own shadow. They refuse to even engage with ideas that they may see as, or often they just don't understand, but they may see as socialist or progressive because they've been taught that those words are problematic. And if we can reclaim that, just like we can reclaim patriotism, we can start winning these elections. We can start offering material change.
It seems like it's trending in that direction. Again, seeing it from from a top-down level, the Democratic Party is really, like when we were at the DNC, we saw it was just a sea of American flags, 20,000 American flags, and really wrapping ourselves in the flag. Because I agree, and I know Stephen agrees, and many others do, that the Republican Party is not a patriotic party.
No.
So it's good that even as a progressive, you really believe that mantle of patriotism.
Do that with signs too.
Yeah.
We'll stick 2 small signs next to every one of our signs that we set up, just so that people start subconsciously equating Harris, Baldwin, Walter with patriotism, with the American flag.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Got any other questions?
No, I agree.
Yeah. See, by the way, I appreciate the fact that you referenced the earlier conversation you had with him yesterday, the worst conversation, the rough draft conversation.
Yes.
Include him in this. Obviously, you're having so much fun here. I want you to make sure you include him too.
Are you looking at him or me when you say that?
I'm talking to him. Thank you.
I'd be curious, how was the DNC experience for you two? I was there. We did an event, Progressive Central through Progressive Democrats of America, Sunday, Monday before the convention, in conjunction with, to supplement the convention, and we approached it as, what would a progressive national convention look like, akin to the Republican or Democratic National Convention, but dedicated exclusively to progressive issues. And of course, many of the best and brightest progressive minds were there. Bernie Sanders was there, Pramila Jayapal was there, Ro Khanna was there, Sarah Nelson was there, Nina Turner was there, Harvey Kaye was there. It was excellent. It was incredible. Held at the Chicago Teachers Union facility, beautiful facility, and we thank them so much for hosting. But when we have those spaces to have the conversations that I think the party might not necessarily be comfortable having, because often, like we talked about yesterday, they're trying to win over more of these moderate and or lean conservative type voters that they think could come under our umbrella, rather than recognizing that there is a very strong progressive base out there that might stay home. We have to try to balance that. So as content creators, what was the convention like for the two of you?
So it was my first DNC. I had a really good time. It was overwhelming though, like being in that space and being around so many other content creators because they had their own sections set up. But yeah, like the energy was off the charts. People were palpably excited, nervous. I think that was also, part of it too, because President Biden, had only recently said that he was not seeking a re-election, and this was uncharted territory for us. Vice President Harris for the longest time was not a particularly popular politician, and her popularity is obviously swelling now. There's a genuine enthusiasm, and I don't think it's manufactured. I think that she's doing the stump very well. But yeah, it was awesome. And I'm normally not one for conventions, but I had a positive impression of it. So yeah.
I had a great impression because I got to watch it. A streamer that I don't like very much get kicked out, so.
I'm not going to touch any of that.
That's good. But no, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, overwhelmingly, the vibes were much more positive than the Republican one. Republicans are actually
in Milwaukee.
Yeah, it's insane. It feels like the intro to like every movie ever, where it's like obviously these are the bad guys and obviously they're horrible, crazy people, and just like the sea of like what's the immigrant one, like ship them back or deport them?
Deport them, I think it said, yeah.
It's like Jesus Christ. I thought that the DNC, the event was way better. Obviously, you had really great speakers there. Barack Obama, obviously, we talked a little bit about this. It was a much more positive vibe, a much more positive presentation, and we were still kind of like riding off that high of the candidate swap and everything, or also known as the subversive coup, I guess.
Oh my God, yeah.
Republican. So I think the
what are we doing? Celebrating
true.
this coup? Unbelievable.
I thought it was. I really liked Michelle Obama's presentation in particular, because I think when they go low, we go high argument she made a few years ago was one of the absolute worst strategies that Democrats have utilized in quite some time and set us back significantly. But I think she recognized that as well.
Stephen, how do you feel about that? When they go low, we go high. You got any thoughts about that?
Sometimes going high can be better because you've got like Never mind.
Yeah.
Way too edgy.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Gotcha.
Well, she
But-
recognized that. She talked about it, and then she said, do something. Do something. It's the easiest ask in the world for every single one of us. We all have a role we can play. Just do something.
No, it was definitely a positive message, definitely, and overall, yeah, great vibes. So, William, man, I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you
Thank
for
you so much.
for coming back and having, again, obviously a more enjoyable conversation with me than the one you had with Destiny and Hutch. But
I thought yesterday's conversation was great as well. It was wonderful
wow,
to see you again, Steve.
the ultimate
But-
politician there. Yeah.
Well, and I do
Yeah.
have to reiterate how truly impressed I was with this whole weekend and all the work that y'all have been doing. And what I saw last night, the camaraderie that people were coming together, like-minded people, a lot of Wisconsinites, a lot of people that drove up from other locations, just to spend time with people who see the world through the same lens as them and go out and knock doors. If the Democratic Party, if the institutional support came behind that type of endeavor, I've been telling the party to do exactly what you guys did for years. You got to meet voters where they're at. And y'all did it. That was incredible. Keep up the good work.
Appreciate that.
Yeah,
So thank
thanks.
you. Thanks for coming.
Of course.